This is the last video in this series of muscles before your exam. So a lot of this is stuff that you already know, and then we'll go through some pathophysiology. So different parts to the skeletal muscle, you guys already know this. Origin is a stationary end that's usually more proximal, closer to the body. The belly is the whole main part of the muscle. And then the insertion is the mobile end that's usually distal. Muscles can attach in one of four ways. They can directly attach to bone. So, for example, your intercostal muscles in your ribs, they are directly attached to the bone. So you can't tell really where the bone ends and the muscle starts. They can indirectly attach, which is more common, using a tendon or an aponeurosis to connect to the bone. And then these last two, muscles can attach to the dermis, so to your skin, and this is to help with like facial expressions. So there are muscles in your forehead that attach to your eyebrows and allow you to raise your eyebrows and depress your eyebrows. The other one is attachment to other muscles. So there are other muscles in your face that attach directly to other muscles, and that's also for facial expression. You guys are really familiar with this idea. In order to have a muscle movement, we have three different parts. So there's the prime mover that's doing most of the work. There's the synergist that is helping the prime mover. It's doing the same thing, and it might just stabilize or modify. The antagonist is opposing the prime mover, and this may prevent injury. So, for example, in elbow flexion, the prime mover is your brachialis muscle. The synergist that is helping is the biceps brachii. And the antagonists are your triceps brachii. And I have that example shown here. So you have prime mover, brachialis, synergist, biceps brachii, and antagonist as triceps brachii. We also have what we call intrinsic and extrinsic muscles. So muscles moving your hand can be found within the hand that we would call intrinsic, or muscles that move the hand can be found outside of the hand and we would call them extrinsic. We'll go through a little bit of pathophysiology. So the first disease is called muscular dystrophy, and this is a group of diseases that all lead to skeletal muscle degeneration. The most common that you've probably heard of is called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. This is genetic. It lacks a protein called dystrophin. That dystrophin is part of what stabilizes the plasma membrane called the sarcolemma. And without this, the sarcolemma is really susceptible to damage. Once that gets damaged, individuals with Duchenne's have trouble walking. They might have weird posture. You can see like a shorter stature. The next disease is called myasthenia gravis, or you might see it abbreviated MG. This is an autoimmune disease similar to an autoimmune disease that we discussed in bones, rheumatoid arthritis. So what happens in autoimmune diseases, the antibodies in the blood recognize the muscles themselves as being foreign, so they start attacking them, which is not good. So they specifically attack the neuromuscular junction, and this causes the binding to acetylcholine receptors, and then this also decreases the number of receptors, so we get decreased muscle stimulation. So you can see here, it often will start in the eyes. So you can see this individual, this drawing, this picture shows what we call ptosis, which is drooping of the eyelid, and sometimes it'll happen on one side or the other, and these individuals might have weird like double vision or have trouble moving that eye. They'd also probably be pretty weak and tired. The problem with this disease is eventually really important muscles that help you breathe, like your diaphragm, get paralyzed, and then you can no longer breathe, and that leads to death. disease here is called rigor mortis. We talked about this a little bit in class, but this is what happens after an individual dies, a few hours after to about 2 to 3 days later. So what happens is the muscles start to get really stiff because we get released calcium, but we do not have any ATP. So the combination of calcium and no ATP leads to contracted muscles. So the myosin-actin cross-bridge forms, muscles contract, but they can't relax because you need ATP to relax. And so individuals look like they are very tense, but they are actually no longer alive. This continues until eventually the myofilaments actually decay. Once they decay through kind of normal processes, then the contraction stops. Okay, so this is it for muscles for your lecture exam. I will be posting a video going through your study guide for this exam. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Message me on Canvas, shoot me an email. Let's all get through this together.